Hello and welcome to another video from Prof. Paul B. Today we'll be looking at inheritance, and I'll be doing an example of creating a base class called Account and creating a subclass called SavingsAccount. What we want to do is we want to model how we would write an application for a bank, let's say, that has different types of accounts: savings account, checking account. And some of these accounts have things in common. For example, they'll have a date created. Doesn't matter if it's saving or checking. They'll have that in common. They'll have a current balance. They'll allow for withdrawal of funds, for deposit of funds. Although there'll be slight differences between the savings and checkings, there is a lot of commonality. So it makes a lot of sense to actually create a superclass and to extend the superclass, like to have a superclass, let's say an account class, and for our savings account, just to extend from the account class and to do anything specialized that we need to do within the saving account. Okay, so to that end, what I did is I created a test account project in NetBeans, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start now by creating the class account, and this is going to be the superclass. Can be abstract. I'm not going to put it as abstract for now. And there's a couple of data fields that we want in this account class. We want a date created, and this is oops, I forgot the type, and this is going to be a date type. And we also want another data field is going to be balance. All accounts have a balance, and we'll use a double, because balance can be fractional. Notice there's no visibility modifier. That means that currently these are package private, but I'd like to tighten that up a little bit, and not too much. If I put them private, then they won't be accessible from the savings account, which is going to inherit from it. So what I will be doing is I'll be putting them as protected, and this one as well. Okay, so our data fields are protected, and so we have the account. Now, a couple of things that the account, every single account will have a couple methods. We'll have a withdrawal, and I'll just write the stubs for now. Public, I'll do void withdraw, and when we're doing this, we're going to actually input an amount as a parameter, and I'm just going to do the stubs for now, and we're going to do public void deposit, and again we're going to have an input for amount. And what I want to add, what I didn't add yet, is actually a constructor. When we're creating this account class, we will actually create a constructor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use NetBeans handy dandy functionality to create a constructor. I will not do the date created. The date created will be a timestamp that I will do in the constructor itself. I don't want to pass in a date. I'll be initializing it. And one thing I want to do is I want to, yes, it is the balance, but I'd rather call this initial deposit, because when we're creating the account is when we're actually creating it with an initial deposit. So I'm going to refactor this. I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to backspace, and I'm going to write initial deposit. And notice how NetBeans, because I did the Control R for refactoring, NetBeans actually changed it in both locations. Okay, so now we have the initial deposit. Do we still need this? Actually, no, we don't, because initial deposit is no longer, it's not hiding the balance data field. So actually, I'm going to take this out. I don't like having this when I don't really need it. Okay, so now we have our constructor accepting an initial deposit for account. We have a couple stubs. Let me take away some spaces here. We don't need all that space. We have a couple of stubs for withdrawal, And what I'll do is in the stub, I will write basically the basic code for withdrawing is what we do is that, well, withdrawal we have to be careful. First thing we have to do is assume that bank accounts, most bank accounts are, I would say you cannot go below zero. The banks tend not to like that. Although with a checking account you can have an overdraft, and we'll be looking at that in a future video. But for now, let's assume that the amount cannot be less than zero. So the balance, I should say. So let me check this. So if amount is greater than balance, then what I'm going to do, this is not the best coding practice in the world, and later what we'll find out, what would be a better way would be to actually throw an exception, but in this case I'm just going to do a write to the console, and I'm not going to perform the operation. Not have, let me see, what's the message that I'd like to write? Cannot withdraw more than balance. Okay, that's good. Cannot withdraw more than balance. Okay, so I'm just going to display that message again. This is not the best practice. It would be much better to throw an exception, but we'll cover that in a later video. Okay, so now we're going to look at the else side. So else amount is less than or equal to balance. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simply deduct the amount from the balance. So we'll do balance minus equals amount. Okay, and that's it. That's it for withdraw. And now for deposit. Basically, the bank never refuses a deposit, although they can put a hold on it, but we're not going to model that now. So all we're going to do is we're going to put the balance plus equals amount. Okay, so that's it. So we have our account class. Ooh, one thing we forgot. See, we have our date created, and I was mentioning we wanted to initialize that in our constructor. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to do date created is equal to new date. One thing you'll notice is you might, when you created this data field, you might have had a light bulb here, and where you actually need to have this import statement. I already had it because I did some test code before, but you'll need to import the date, java.util.date. Okay, so this is our base class account with two data fields, date created and balance. Has a constructor that accepts initial deposit, assigns it to balance, and initializes the date created to new date, which gives it a timestamp of basically the current date and time. We have an error here, but we have two methods. We have a withdrawal method and a deposit method. So now I'm going to remove this. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create a subclass. I want to create a savings account with a few that has a few. It's a specialized type of account. Okay, there we go. So now let's create a new class, savings account, and actually I want to inherit. I want to inherit from the account class, so I'm going to extends account, and I'm going to. So now savings account extends account. So what account constructor account and account cannot be applied. It's required double. Remember, because whenever you're extending a class, Java will put a constructor. Remember, Java puts a default constructor in any class that doesn't have a constructor, a no-arg constructor. And in that no-arg constructor, if you're extending another class, Java will automatically put super, the super keyword, open close bracket, which is calling the no-arg constructor of the base class. But now, because our base class here has one constructor right here, and it expects a parameter. Okay, and it expects an initial deposit. So what we have to do is we have to call our superclasses one arg constructor, because it does not have a no arg constructor. So we have to do that explicitly. Let's go to Java, to NetBeans, insert code, and let's do constructor. NetBeans is kind of smart. So you notice that it created the constructor, and it added for us the call to the superclasses constructor, and it's actually also saying that it's also expecting an initial deposit. Okay. So the one more thing that the savings account has, we're going to introduce interest rate, because savings account usually have some type of interest rates, although it might not necessarily be very high at all. But let's write interest rate, and we'll actually add that as a data field. Okay, so a savings account is an account with an interest rate. Okay, so let's we'll do this as private. I'm not anticipating overriding or extending the savings account, so we'll do private double interest rate. And here in our constructor, I'm just going to assign the value coming in to my data field. So now I definitely need this, because it is this interest rate parameter is effectively hiding the data field interest rate. So this dot interest rate equals interest rate, and now we have so that's good. So we have our interest rate, we have our savings account. We have one thing about savings account. Sometimes there's a fee of $2 for every withdrawal. So we have a withdrawal method here in the superclass, but we don't have there's no $2 here, because not all accounts, savings account, do have they may have a withdrawal fee. Like checking accounts, very often they will not have a withdrawal fee under certain conditions. So basically what I want to do is I want to override this withdrawal method, because for the savings account I will be deducting $2 for every deposit. So if I want to override, I have to create the same method signature, and let's go ahead and do that, and double amount. And what I'm going to do is, because in my rules I said that every withdrawal will be subject to the $2 withdrawal fee, I'm actually going to just call the super dot withdraw, and I'm going to do amount plus 2, and that's it. That's it. So now if if basically we're calling this the superclass as implementation of withdraw, and we're adding our $2. Maybe I'll write a note. So, calling the superclass as withdraw to include the $2 fee. Okay. So now let's take a look. So now we've got our savings account with our interest rate, and one thing I do want to write is I want to create a toString method. And again, I'm going to go into the insert code, toString, generate, and I'm going to change this slightly. I'm going to write savings account. What it didn't. Okay, let's see. I'm going to write savings account created. Oops. Savings account created on, and I'm going to do plus. What was the creation date? Date created. I'll just do a Control-C. Plus date created. Plus has a current balance. Oops. I'm going to start my string. Current balance of, and You know what I want to do is I want to, well, we'll just leave it like this for now. Current balance of, I'd like to format this, but maybe we'll do that in another video. And then plus balance, B-A-L-A-N-C, oops. And that's it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, so this is our savings account. We have a withdrawal method. The deposit, we are not going to override it. The deposit just works exactly the same. We just add the amount deposited. So we will simply use the one from our base class or parent class. So now what we're going to do in here is we're going to ask the user to create a savings account. Or actually, we're going to ask the user we're going to create a savings account, but we'll ask the user how much they want for their initial deposit. So first I'll have to create my scanner. I'll call it input equals new scanner, and we'll do system.in, and we should see something popping up here. Cannot find symbol, add the import, and now what we'll do is we'll do a system.out.print. We don't want the line. I'm going to write something, please. Enter initial deposit. And we're going to do input. We're going to assume the user is going to input proper data. So we'll do input. So we'll do, double amount equals input. I am confused because input dot next double. Okay, so we have double amount equals input dot next double. So please enter the initial deposit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of our savings account. So savings account. Savings account, and I'll just call it account equals new savings account, and I'm going to add an amount. And let's see what we did not do right here. We're expecting a double. Oh yes, we forgot let's go take a look at the constructor. For savings account, we're expecting a initial deposit, which we have, but also an interest rate. Okay, so the interest rate will assume the user can't enter the interest rate, because that would be actually nice if I could tell the bank what interest rate I wanted. But let's just say the interest rate right now is 2.0. Okay, so now we created an account, a savings account, and initial deposit, whatever the user entered, and an interest rate of 2.0. Okay, so now what I want to do, and I'm going to ask the user if they want to do a withdrawal or deposit. So I'm going to do string CHOCE equals, first I'm going to do a prompt. I'm going to do, okay, enter 1 for deposit. So I'll use an int instead. Enter 1 for deposit, or 2 for withdrawal. Okay, and I'm going to change this to int choice, and I'm going to go to the end here. I'll put a space. Okay, so int choice is equal to input dot next int. Not next int. Okay, so now man, you know what? Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm gonna push F6, and we see please enter, and I think this might be off of your screen, but we see please enter an initial deposit, and I'm going to enter 1,000, and enter 1 for deposit, 2 for withdrawal, and nothing happens because we didn't do anything. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So now we're going to look at the choice, and I'll do a switch. Switch on choice. And I'll do case 1. And for case 1 is a deposit. So I'm also going to do a Control C. I'm going to do enter the deposit amount. Let's see. Enter. I'll just do transaction amount. Transaction amount. And here I'm going to I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use a double. Amount. You know what? I'm going to reuse that amount variable. Amount equal input xdaUble, and I'm going to use my account dot spelling mistake deposit. I should see a deposit method here, and I'm going to use amount, and that's case 1, and I'm going to break, and case 2 I'm going to do something similar. Control C, Control V, and instead of doing a deposit, I'm going to do a withdrawal. And notice here I'm using these 2 lines of code exactly the same. So you know what? I don't like having them in 2 different places. So I'm actually going to remove it and put it before the switch. Because in both instances, and again, I'm assuming the user is going to enter valid data. But in both instances, we're going to be using the exact same line of code, 2 lines of code. Okay, so I'm going to take it out from here as well. There. And finally, what I want to do is I want to just display the value. So I'll do sout. And I'm just going to print account. Remember, we overrode the toString. I'm just going to print the toString. Okay. So let's compile this. Let's do F6 and run. Please enter initial deposit 1,000, and I'll do I have a typo for okay, there we go. Much better. And let's go F6. So please enter an initial deposit. We will do 1,000, and I will do deposit of $100, and then the toString has missing a space. So let's come to our toString. We need a space right here. Okay. And if we go back, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch out of the full screen mode so that you can see the output as well. I want to make sure that we can see this on our okay. So now if we take a look at this, now we should be good. We should be good. Okay, so that's actually still running here. Let's just kill it. Okay, let's run this again. Please enter initial deposit. I'm going to enter $1,500. One for deposit or two for withdrawal. I'll do a withdrawal, and I'll withdraw 500. And it says that 998. Oh, it's not 1,000 because remember we had that $2 transaction fee. And let's run it again. Let's see if our if it works that we're not allowing them to withdraw more than they actually deposited, or what's the balance. And oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's see where this goes. Yeah, it didn't do anything. Okay, let's run that again. Okay, so my initial deposit is 500, and because I have the switch entering the 750, didn't go into anything. Okay, enter 1 for deposit, 2 for withdrawal, and I will enter 750. Error, cannot withdraw more than balance, and we see that we still have 500. So this seems to work. Just the one little hitch that I saw that I would probably like to do is I would like to have a default here, and let's do that right now. Default, that means they didn't select 1 or 2, and we'll just do a S out. Please enter 1 or 2, or we'll say invalid selection for now. Okay, so and now let's just try the new invalid selection. Please enter a deposit, $1,000. Enter 1. Okay, let's enter 5. And it says, oh, here's because we're asking for the transaction amount. And it says invalid selection afterwards. Well, we could fix this up. We could fix this up actually by putting these two back into the case statement. So you know what? Let me go ahead and do that. Control X. What else I could do if I really don't like to see this duplicated code, I could put these 2 lines in a method and call that method, which might be a good idea. But for now we'll just leave it like this. We'll trust it one last time. And I'll do 1,000, and if I do 56, then it says invalid selection. Okay, so that's the video for today. Well, I hope it made a bit of sense. What we wanted to do is we wanted to create an account class. We wanted to create an account class that would be a superclass. And the superclass has a date created, balance, it has a constructor with initial deposit, and it's actually putting a timestamp for the date, has a method withdraw and a method with deposit. And we created a savings account that extended the account class, but this one has one additional data field, interest rate. And in our constructor, we're actually calling the superclass's constructor with the initial deposit. So that's setting our balance. That's setting the balance here. And we're also setting the interest rate in the case of a savings account, because that's one thing extra that the savings account has that the base class account does not have. And we're overriding the withdraw method because with the child class savings account, we're actually withdrawing the amount plus 2. And we're not overriding the deposit, and we looked at the deposit, that's working fine. We're not overriding it because it's working just fine the way we want it to. And we created a 2-string method. Okay, so that's it for today for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more to come. Thanks.